Hey, I'm Tom. That over there is Mike. And I'm sorry, I forgot to buy a leather jacket for this one. Because this video is a brief history of WCW Road Wild? Road Hog Wild? Wild for hogs on the road? The motorcycle show. In 1996, WCW Grand Poobah Eric Bischoff was told that he needed to add more pay-per-views to the schedule because they couldn't draw more on pay-per-view, like I've said before, but they could draw more money if they just ran more pay-per-views. And in his cleverness, he took care of two birds with one stone. You see, he loves motorcycles. The motorcycle enthusiast hub of the year is the annual Sturgis Bike Rally in Sturgis, South Dakota. And he had to fill in a pay-per-view on the calendar for August. So he decided to do this. And then he cracked his knuckles and he went to work on an idea. And that idea was to combine his vacation and his pay-per-view problem. And thus WCW Hog Wild was born. Now, all the advertising material done months in advance was based on Hulk Hogan in the red and yellow, repping America, riding his bike to Sturgis, being a real hero to the leather clad. But then the month before the NWO happened, what do we do when the guy that we based all the advertising around becomes the biggest villain in wrestling? The answer was, don't change anything. This is kind of a get for WCW at the time because Hulk Hogan wasn't really working the B pay-per-views, the shows he didn't see worthy of his Hulkitude. However, Hulk Hogan loved motorcycles, and that is how they got his ass on this pay-per-view. Eric was like, hey dude, you want to ride down to Sturgis? And he's like, no, but I will go to Sturgis and then sit on motorcycles to look cool. But Eric Bischoff did ride to Sturgis every year, along with Rick Steiner and Medusa. I believe Sting was on one or two of the trips. All the biker bros and babes in WCW made a habit of driving straight from Nitro every year, directly into Sturgis, South Dakota, on their motorcycles. It was like a team-building activity. The WCW broadcast crew was at their finest. Every year, they got to swag out for some of the dopest fits known to man. Denim Daddy Dusty Rhodes, who's gonna forget that? Bobby Heenan soaked in vodka. You will never hear a person in public as drunk as Bobby Heenan was on the Road Hog Wild pay-per-views. There are points late into the first couple of them, he's not even talking into the headset anymore. He's kind of moved it over here because it's in the way of the drink getting to his mouth. Hog Wild 1996, August the 10th, the big selling point, Hollywood Hogan and the NWO, their first pay-per-view. It's also the day before Hulk Hogan's birthday. The Hulkster brother was born on August 11th. You know who else was born on August 11th? Me. And Joe Rogan, too. It fucking sucks. Hogan was going to win the world title for the NWO on his birthday. We'll get to that in a second. For the first and only time they ran a 2-hour live pregame show from Sturgis. They did actually kind of load up the pregame show, though. A lot of stars on it. Also, there was a heel turn. Conan just randomly cuts a promo. And he's like, listen, I'm the Hulk Hogan of Mexico. He's a bad guy now. I should be too. Fuck y'all. He didn't say that because you're not allowed to say pussy or fuck on TBS, as we've established. But we also met the new biggest babyface in WCW.
Hi, I'm Archie, the horny man, the horniest man in Sturgis.
The horny man, the horniest man in Sturgis. Why the hell wasn't he wrestling the Giant in the main event? Comes in with them things, boo, stabs Paul White right in the stomach, wins the belt. The Attitude Era? More like the horny era, baby. The only real motorcycle gimmick match on any of the shows was this bike versus bike match, Medusa versus Bull Nakano with Sonny Ono, just because they wanted to smash a Honda bike. Nobody really gave a crap outside of the bikes, because, were we mad at Japan in 1996? I mean, Suncoast was really starting to sell them anime tapes. We were cool with the Japanese. And therein lies the answer to a trivia question. That being, what is the only match to ever happen in both the Tokyo Dome and a large pile of dirt in Sturgis, South Dakota? Other than that match, they didn't really modify the content of the Sturgis shows a whole bunch for the audience. They just ran regular WCW shows, which didn't work out very well at times. For instance, Chris Benoit wrestled Dean Malenko. And see, here's the thing that WCW did not understand. Bikers hate work rate. It is the number one law of all the leather daddies and macho mamas. They don't want to see suplexes and ballyhoos. But they got 30 minutes of it. The match goes to a 20-minute draw, and then 2 5-minute sudden death overtimes immediately afterwards. I think this match is now most known for airing in full on that episode of Raw, the night that WWE was trying to convince people that they didn't know that Benoit had killed his family. Also, Harlem Heat retained the WCW World Tag Team titles over the Steiner brothers. This did not go well. The crowd was really, really racist. So unbelievably racist. Uncomfortably racist. It was almost disruptive to the match how awful the audience was being to Harlem Heat. And you know, I hear you at home, they're the heels, they're supposed to get booed. Dude, they were one step away from like holding up nooses and burning crosses in the audience. It was bad. The Outsiders have their first pay-per-view tag team duos match. They defeat Sting and Lex Luger. It's alright. Finish was real weird. So Sting's like, hey Kevin Nash, I'm gonna put you in a scorpion deathlock outside the ring. That's totally how you win matches. Lex Luger goes for the rack on Scott Hall, and he accidentally goes like, bonk, to Nick Patrick. Nick Patrick's like, you know, fucker, just for that, I'm gonna betray the company that's been paying me a living wage for 7 years. And he gives Lex Luger one of the best chop blocks I've ever seen in a wrestling ring. And then he fast counts Scott Hall, and the NWO wins. And in the main event, the day before birthday boy, Hulk Hogan, Hollywood Hogan, in his first NWO match as a heel, defeats the Giant for the World Heavyweight title. I think he was going to win the world title even if he was a babyface with the red and yellow. It worked out better for the storyline since he's now a heel. And after the match, who should stroll up to ringside carrying a birthday cake? The Booty Man. The Booty Man carrying cake. The jokes write themselves. And he's like, hey Terry, it's me, your friend. Let's eat some cake. And Hulk Hogan's like, hey dude, I'd love to eat some cake with you. But where'd you get that bootleg shirt you're wearing? And he's like, man, we're in the NWO, you know, we're best friends. And then Hogan's like, hey Kevin Nash, I need to whisper something in your ear. Probably said like a slur or whatever, and then they jumped him. They really slapped that booty. Man. Also, this is the infamous moment where they spray paint the world title belt, create a classic thing that people remember to this day, blah, 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 blah. This is the point where you insert Peter Rosenberg's talking head, and then we go to commercial and A&E for the biography, whatever. Almost 1 year to the day, August the 9th, 1997, we go from Hog Wild to Road Wild. Because you see, in the prior year, Harley Davidson had sent WCW a cease and desist. They were like, guys, listen, we're the Hog Masters. You need to stop using our intellectual property. Put the hog in our hand, right here. Put it. They're like, fine, plop. However, this is a bit of information that people do not realize about that story. 2 years later almost, February 1999. Harley tries to pull this crap again on a mechanic that runs a bike shop in New York. He calls his shop like Fixin' Hogs with Mike or whatever. And so they sue him. And it goes all the way to the U.S. Circuit Court in D.C. And it is ruled that the word hog when referring to a motorcycle is way too much of like a vague slang term for anybody to actually have trademark rights to. WCW didn't notice, so like they just got effed in the B. Anyway, we're back in Sturgis again. They set up a ring, they set up some lights, and they get a bunch of bikers to be weird and mean. Harlem Heat's in the opener. They beat Vicious and Delicious, and once again, the crowd's real weird and awkward. Conan defeated Rey Mysterio Jr. in a Mexican death match. There's no, like, real steps to a Mexican death match. Mike today explains it's just no DQ. What makes it Mexican? Conan defeats Rey by submission. He puts him in the Tequila Sunrise. That's all she wrote. Rey had been having knee problems in real life leading up to this. He'd been walking around in crutches on television. Conan had taken advantage of that. Crowd didn't give a crap because they were trying to wrestle. They throw Benoit and Malenko back out there again because they hated them, I guess. However, they did give them a life preserver. A 6'3", 270-pound life preserver who won a Super Bowl ring in 1985. Steve Mongo McMichael, who was beloved by, as he called them in a promo, his biker bros. It was Mongo and Benoit against Jeff Jarrett and Dean Malenko in an elimination tag team match because this crowd needed more rules to remember. Jarrett had just left the Horsemen. He had stolen Mongo's wife. Dean Malenko was like his business associate for some reason. Mostly Jeff Jarrett just needed a tag team partner for this. And they're like, hey, Dean, you loved Sturgis so much, go back. Malenko wrestles like the entire match because the story is that Jeff Jarrett does not want to get in there with Mongo. He finally tags in. He distracts Mongo long enough to pull Mongo on top of him and allow Mongo to pin him. And so it is 2-on-1. The valiant bad guy, Dean Malenko, has to fight from underneath to courageously defeat the two dastardly protagonists, the Four Horsemen. Does so for over 5 minutes, and then they finally beat him. The Giant beat Randy Savage. Honestly, by WCW main eventer standards, this is one of the more selfless performances you'll ever see. Randy just let Giant beat his ass for like 7 minutes. There's a little bit of stuff where he works over Giant's leg, but it's mostly just Giant beating his ass. And then by this point, the Outsiders had been the World Tag Team Champions for months. Steiners had been chasing them. They had almost won the belts multiple times, and by almost, I mean they did win the belts, and then they just gave them back to the Outsiders the night after. This was going to be their big moment to win the belts in front of their fellow rednecks and mud eaters in Sturgis, South Dakota. Except it wasn't. Steiners have the match in their favor, and then Kevin Nash pulls referee Nick Patrick out of the ring, and Nick Patrick DQs the Outsiders. Now you'd think, hey, I've been watching wrestling for more than a day. I know that a disqualification means that the challengers do not win the belts. Not the Steiners and Ted DiBiase, who saw the disqualification happen, did not see a pinfall or submission happen, and assumed they won the belts. And then Nick Patrick has to be like, no, let me explain the rules to you. The rules of wrestling. He takes away the belts. And in the main event, Lex Luger, who had just won the world title from Hulk Hogan 5 days earlier on Nitro, in one of the best moments in WCW history. It's so joyous. If you've never seen it, it's awesome. Defends the world title against the prior champion, Hollywood Hogan. It's pretty much the same match as Nitro, except they just give the belt back to Hulk Hogan. Even though Luger had incredible momentum, and his win was genuinely one of the biggest quarter hours that WCW had gotten in the ratings, and it was an incredible moment. The crowd was so into it. We can't ride this wave. We have a finish to fuck up at Starrcade. There's run-ins galore by the NWO, and then what they say is a fake Sting pops up. Looks more like fake Ryder Strong. He hits Luger with a bat. Hogan wins, gets the belt back, spray paints it again. And who's hanging out in the locker room area but Dennis Rodman, who was not in front of the crowd at all the entire night? He just came to drink with the wrestlers. The next year, we're back in Sturgis, of course. Road Wild 1998. The big advertising point for this show was that after the pay-per-view was over, Travis Tritt, country music superstar, would play for 30 minutes after the pay-per-view for no additional charge. Let me share some childhood trauma with you. From around the time of this show. My sister's husband at the time, they're no longer married. He had given my mom $30 and asked her, hey, could you please have Tommy record the pay-per-view for me? I did just that. And I gave him the tape the next morning, and then I get an angry phone call that night. Where the fuck is Travis Tritt? He just told my mom to have me record the show. He thought that I knew that he meant to record the Travis Tritt concert. Why would I immediately assume that? He liked wrestling. He shaved his head bald. He got the Goldberg tattoo. Why would I just know to keep the tape running for the Travis Tritt concert? I don't give a shit about Travis Tritt. Travis Tritt, more like Travis shit. I don't listen to that crap. I was 11 years old. I just started watching MTV. I loved the Wallflowers and Semisonic. None of this Travis Tritt bullshit. This fucker calls me on the phone and yells at me. I'm a child. I'm a fat little child. He tried to get the $30 back from my mom. Big Vicky is like, no, you asked him to record the show and you got the show, so eat my butt. Speaking of Travis Tritt, turns out he was the best worker on the entire show. As the show is going on, word gets around that Travis Tritt, through his manager, is refusing to play after the show. Travis Tritt's manager goes up to Eric Bischoff. He is not going on that stage, despite filming commercials for you, despite all your advertising about how he's playing after the show. He is not hitting that stage unless he gets his money up front. You buy him 3 motorcycles and you get him a Learjet to fly home. So Eric Bischoff spends so much money to make Travis Tritt happy. What the hell would my sister's husband have done if I left it going and they had to be like, sorry, Travis isn't playing? Anyway, the pay-per-view sucked. There's a 15-minute Public Enemy versus Dancing Fools match with their buddy, Toru Monstar, Magnum Tokyo, aka Tokyo Magnum. Public Enemy gets the win when they do a double-decker table spot thing off of one of the trusses that's holding up the lights. Mongo gets to wrestle again in front of his biker bros. He wrestles Brian Adams in a match that had not been advertised. There was no feud building it up. It's just, these look like a couple of big guys that the bikers would love. I love Steve Mongo McMichael, a legitimate favorite of mine. This is one of the worst things I've ever seen happen in a wrestling ring. I blame Brian Adams. Slow, and they are never on the same page. It's rough. It's very rough. It's funny, but it's rough. Rey Mysterio Jr. wrestles Psychosis. It's fine. You know, even a fine Rey and Psychosis match is going to be better than 90% of all of their wrestling. However, as we should have learned earlier, WCW, bikers hate work rate. Complete silence while these two are out there doing all their moves. It's supposed to be a Rick Steiner-Scott Steiner match after 6 months of build from Scott Steiner's heel turn at Super Brawl in February. Scott Steiner is sent out on a gurney with an oxygen mask and a neck brace on. And then JJ Dillon comes out in his biz cash and he's like, guess this doctor note's legit. Scott, you're hurt. Sorry. We can't do the advertised match. We'll do it next month at Super Brawl. You know what gave the whole thing away, that they weren't going to actually do the match? Rick Steiner didn't even change into his ring gear when he walked out. He was just there in jeans and the shirt he wore to the building. Have a little bit of professional pride, my dude. There's the NWO Battle Royal. You see, this is the point where, like, nobody wants to do a pinfall job in WCW. Nobody. Even Horace, who's being a nude baldy, is like, I don't want to get pinned. So this is the solution. The strongest forces in WCW all colliding. NWO Hollywood, NWO Wolfpack, and Goldberg. Why does Goldberg give a shit? I don't know. I think they just forgot to put him anywhere else on the show, and they're like, crap. The world champion's not wrestling. In Battle Royals, you're eliminated by being thrown over the top rope, both feet touching the floor, right? That's been the Battle Royal rule for 106 years. At the end of the match, it's Goldberg and NWO Hollywood's The Giant. They're left standing. And whoever agent in the match is like, we want a cool visual. It's not enough if the Giant just gets tossed over the rope. No. We want the moon and the stars in the background while Goldberg holds that big MFer up in the air and drops him down with the jackhammer. And thus, the finish of the match, despite nobody being told in advance that this is a possibility, was a pinfall. I don't know, seems like kind of a life hack. It's you and 10 other adults. You don't know what to do. They're throwing each other out of the ring, they're leaning on each other, they're sweating on each other, just kind of snarl around like a bull. Intimidate. And then it's you, and then there's a really tall guy that smokes a lot, has great hair. That's always how it's gonna be. Here's what you do. He's a team lift. You need 4 or 5 people to get under him and throw him out. You change the rules on them. It takes way less effort to hold somebody down than it does to lift them up. And then you make them count to 3, and you win. You turn the battle royal back around on them, and life is yours. That's a life hack. Main event time. Jay Leno from The Tonight Show teams with Diamond Dallas Page to wrestle Eric Bischoff and Hollywood Hogan. Weeks of angles where Bischoff did a Tonight Show ripoff, literally just doing Leno's jokes on Nitro from 2 days earlier. And then Hogan and Bischoff take over the Tonight Show. DDP's like, hey, dude, you want to do a tag match? And Leno's like, not really, but sure. They convinced Leno to be there because Leno loves bikes. He loves bikes and he loves cars. We're like, dude, we will pay for your whole way to Sturgis and your whole way back if you just get in a wrestling ring for like 15 minutes on Saturday night. You don't have to do much. Just put Hulk Hogan's arm under your armpit for like 90 seconds and you're good. Now, I spoke about sick fits earlier. Shout out to Kevin Eubanks, the Night Show band leader at ringside. Dude got himself a custom Tonight Show, like, white denim shirt with the sleeves cut off so he can be like, look, no drug testing on NBC. 1999, the end is near, and you can tell because they changed the logo. The new Star Trek looking WCW logo wouldn't fit in the old motif. Ernest the Cat Miller against Buff Bagwell. Oh boy. In the build up to this match, Cat had been beating Buff Bagwell's butt every week on Nitro. And then Bagwell's like, I want to do that thing they did on Raw with DX and the Nation. Buff Bagwell comes out on Nitro in full blackface and does a real gross impersonation of Ernest Miller. Also, there's a guy standing next to him wearing like a rubber Sonny Ono mask that feels even worse somehow. The day of the show, they go off to Buff and the Cat. Cat's going up tonight. You guys figure out the finish. Bagwell's like hell he is. And then according to Bagwell, they bring like 6 other agents over because he's getting real testy. And they're like, listen, you're going to put Ernest over tonight. And he's like, no, I'm not. And the way Buff tells it, he felt cornered in because he had like a half dozen grown men around him in the catering area. He's getting real upset. And then Ernest made like a sudden movement and Buff's like, I have to defend myself. And so he throws a punch at a 3-time world karate champion. Ernest Miller took his ass down, threw a few shots, and then Bagwell's like, I'm sorry. And that was it. The Cat has also done interviews where his story did line up with Buff's. Though he never mentioned the blackface part, Buff has claimed that when they met with Eric Bischoff later on, Cat did say, hey, I was pissed off because that was bullshit. Even though Buff instigated the fight, when they do sit down with Eric Bischoff later, Bischoff's like, hey, we're switching the finish. Buff's up because wrestling. Am I right? Randy Savage in his midlife crisis defeats Dennis Rodman. In the build-up to this match, they had kidnapping, domestic violence, and Arliss. Just a real wild time in WCW. Rodman had like kidnapped Gorgeous George, Randy Savage's girlfriend at the time, the day of the show. It's like, ooh, Gorgeous George is with Rodman now. She left Randy. Savage and Rodman do some mic work before the match, and it's the most vulgar thing I've ever seen on a WCW show.
My ass. Where's my bitch? You're my bitch. I do my shit outside, brother.
The match itself is fine. It's a pretty good walk and brawl, where they just fight all over the wrestling area of Sturgis. Likely to keep Dennis Rodman awake, because the last time he wrestled for WCW, he was taking a nap. They do a spot with a porta potty, Rodman in it gets tipped over, and then Gorgeous George comes out after 4 ref bumps. The 5th referee is attending to the match. Gorgeous George gives Randy a chain, Randy wins. Again, it was totally fine. The main event, to wrap up not just the show, but Road Wild as a concept. Red and yellow Hulk Hogan just won the WCW World title and put back on the colors like a week or 2 before. He wrestles Kevin Nash, his old NWO buddy, in a career versus career match. Now, these two knew that Sturgis was a dead concept, that the crowds weren't reacting to things at best. They tried to make a power play to do their match live at the Manhattan Center in New York. Do 2 separate locations. The story would be that their names were built, their careers were built in New York, so somebody's career had to end in New York. It did kind of make sense, but also very funny. But in probably the only time ever, Eric Bischoff said no to them. They had to wrestle in Sturgis. A very Hulk Hogan by the numbers match. Kevin Nash beats him down, he makes a big comeback, punch, big boot, leg drop, 1, 2, 3. Hulk Hogan defeats Kevin Nash and takes his career as Kevin Nash retires for 2.5 months. And thus ends Road Hog Motorcycle Wild. If you liked the video, make sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, give it a hype, leave a comment so we can chat down there. It would be greatly appreciated. I have t-shirts for sale, notthattomgreen.threadless.com. Join me for my stream Sunday and Tuesday on Twitch and here. Just love me, please. Will you? So again, my name's Tom. That over there's Mike, and I just want to see your hog, man.